Alright, I'm TACCOM sponsored shooter Dylan Easley, and at the request of Tim, I want to show you some stuff with the new version of the dueling deuces that have a split in them. And I also want to show you some ways that you can speed up how your quad loads are going to see if maybe you can get under 4 seconds, get under 3 seconds, or even start to compete with the Nathan Paynes of the world at 2.5 seconds for 8 rounds. So let's go through a few things that what we've got here when it comes to the caddies. Now, these are the new dueling deuces. I tend to use them on a chest rig that I built, basically strapping from an Army surplus store along with a piece of Kydex left over from building holsters. What you'll notice is a slanted profile with a gap. When me and Tim talked about it, this was one of the big features that I really liked. You're also going to notice an offset. The offset is so that the rim and the crimp don't cross on the quad load that's going in. That way you don't end up fumbling shells. It's not something everybody does, it's just something I find to make things a little smoother and faster. The next thing that comes up is my shotgun. So let's take a look at it. This is my Benelli M2. One thing you'll notice is that is a very heavily opened loading port. I have decreased the spring tension by removing a coil 2 from the plunger spring that holds the lifter down, so it is real nice and easy to move. There's enough material moved here for the follower that when I go to load, the shell will physically hit and then come back. You should be able to hear the shell a lot of times. So let's take a look at it. We'll break down the anatomy of a quad load and see what you guys think. Alright, let's break down the anatomy of a good quad load. First thing, just like you prep for any stage, make sure your shells are tight, crimp to rim, everything is sitting there tight, ready to go. With the new dueling deuces, no longer do you have to pull out or tip out, but you can pull back. When you're pulling back, you can keep that elbow in tight and just rip, and that allows you to go a little faster. Allows you to push to get under 3 seconds, under 3.5, be a little quicker than what your competition is. I always like to grip my shotgun along the side here, point my thumb and my finger just like I do when I shoot my rifle. You can keep your thumb off the barrel, and when you roll, use that ridge on the M2 here to keep your thumb in, and that'll keep you from burning your thumb. That's a common complaint a lot of people have. So for a strong hand quad load, the reason why I load strong hand is if I'm loading here, I've got a quick movement here. So I've got minimal movement of the gun, a 90-degree rotation of the gun here before I'm going to drop that quad load in, and it's simple, it's fast. If you've got lightning fast hands, you may be able to accommodate that other ways. You can pull from the belt, you can come down and drop weak hand. Everybody's got an option. Now the bad part about going weak hand here is my gun is almost parallel. In order for me to get past or around the barricade, I've got to really dip this down, and now it's not so easy to quad load anymore. And so if I have to dip this down, there's only so much room because of where the buttstock is hitting here and where I can turn. Versus if I come in, I can come down and still quad load with that barrel tucked down toward the ground. Makes life a little simpler for me. Now, when I quad load, I'm going to have just a little bend in my weak hand, or my weak arm. I'm going to come in and immediately drop my hand down and allow this gun to come up on my shoulder. Bring the buttstock right here. This brings everything right here in my workspace. Keep this elbow in tight. Grab your shells. Pull. Crunch in. And move. Now, one thing that's easy to see here, you can see where my thumb is. The knuckle of my thumb is what's coming along the shell. The shell will go past and back into the shell stop. So as I come in, you're going to hear that sound. So if I'm here and I come down, rip, and then everything's ready to go. So try that. I'll try and do one a little slower, a little smoother, maybe a little closer, and see if we can get a little better view of it. Alright, let's get a closer view and a little slower view of how this works. So we've gone through the anatomy of rolling that gun to the shoulder, grabbing those shells. We have the offset like we talked about. The straight pull that's allowed with these types of shells versus tipping out with others or pushing straight out or in different directions. Now, what we want to focus on here is we've got our gun in. Doesn't matter if we are moving or stationary. So if you're not confident enough to shoot while moving, load while moving, come in, stop, make a good quad load, come in and shoot. You can shave time there. For me, I'm going to go ahead, shoot while moving, and then if I have a chance to load while moving, I'm going to do so. So I want to show a little slower that if I come in and I grab the shells here, I want to keep the elbow in tight. I don't want to flare the elbow. I'm going to pull, bring toward the loading port. I'm going to crunch in. The first two shells are in. You can get kind of a view here. I'm going to push, and I'm literally trying to throw those shells into the loading port. Don't try and lightly push them or place them. Push them in with some authority. So as I come in with the next one, I'm again using my thumb. You'll hear it engage the shell stop and come back against it. That's the advantage of opening this up a little farther. Down here, opening this up farther down, I can even get down here farther without getting my thumb in there. One of the things that you'll see common, somebody will go to load, they'll kick that elbow out. That means my thumb is all the way in the loading port. If it's all the way in the loading port, I got to come up, back down. If I come in, I come across. So if we go in slow again, we come in, and done. All right, now let's talk about people trying to speed things up here. A lot of you have seen the videos like I've done that are pushing 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds. You've seen a video of Nathan Payne pushing 2.5. And I'm gonna give you an idea. You can come in and set your timer at like 2.3 seconds and try and get a quad load. And this is typically what I find. When I try and push it that hard, that's when mistakes happen. Push it slowly. So if I come in, I'm gonna give myself a 3-second delay, and if I try to beat a 2.3 second timer, I'm probably gonna mess up. But let's see what happens. A perfect example. So if we come through and unload and reattach our shells, again, load center or from the side out. I'm going to put in a more realistic timer for a lot of you who will be doing this. Let's do a 6.5 second timer with a 3-second par time. So for a lot of people, this would be a really smooth, clean run in a match. You're faster than a shell every second, and for a lot of people, they'll argue that that's good enough to win. So if we're going to do that pace, we can take a little more relaxed approach. So now, I forgot to close the bolt and still beat it, but set your goals and change your goals a little at a time. If I switch to a 4.5 second par time, a little more reasonable for me for a match, then what'll happen is I'm going to push myself a little more each time. As I push myself a little more each time, I'm going to find where I make mistakes. Do I make mistakes on the grab, or do I make mistakes on the load? If I'm making mistakes on the load, what am I doing wrong? Am I pitching my elbow out? Something I typically find myself doing when I'm trying to go too fast. Return to the fundamentals, and all of a sudden you beat that time with ease. So let's try 4.5 second par time. So, beat it by a pretty good margin, but push yourself a little at a time, a little at a time. So, drop to a 4-second par time. Increase speed just a little bit. Not so much that we start making mistakes, but so, again, beat it by a little bit of a margin. Nothing overly impressive, but at the same time, in a match, that's typically going to be more than enough to get the job done. Alright, now we're going to shoot for a 3.5-second par time. Another small incremental change, incremental increase in speed to see how things do. So, again, beat it by a little bit of a margin. Nothing overly impressive, but in a match, that's going to do everything I need it to do. As you start to get better and better, you start pushing under 3 seconds, and you start to compete with the Nathan Paynes of the world. Again, highly recommend the new version of TACCOM Dueling Deuces. Gives you a nice, good pull to keep things in tight. Keep that arm in tight, elbow in close, for that good, quick, fast quad load. Backer, I'm not making them for anybody. When I have made them, I've given them away. I haven't charged anybody. This is a 3-inch wide by 12-inch piece of Kydex. Chicago screws, knifekits.com carries them, and I push those through the TACCOM backer to lock them in. You can buy sheets of Kydex like this. This is a little bit thinner version. I use 1/8 inch thick. 2 feet of this by 12 inches typically costs you less than 15 bucks. It's a very easy way for you to create your own chest rig. Use a little bit of nylon webbing. If you're at a match and you see me and you know I'm coming, I have a lot of it, and you're welcome to as much as you want. So I bought a roll thinking I'd use it all. I'm not looking to make money off of it. So make your own chest rig, 3 inches. Locate your dueling deuces, attach them, practice it, push yourself incrementally. Don't try and be that hero overnight. Push yourself a little at a time, see what you can do.